Well, when we were raising our kids, in the early years when we had children, we didn't think a whole lot about what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do. We didn't overanalyze it. And so, since both of us had grown up with a history of having Santa Claus in our families, it just didn't really occur to me initially to even evaluate whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing. And then, several years into having kids, I remember I started thinking about whether or not that was a really good thing to do or not as a Christian. Did I want to teach my children to believe in Santa Claus when Santa Claus wasn't really true? And then I ran across this great book, and I loved this book. I probably read it 2 or 3 times, marked it up a whole bunch. And the name of the book is Honey for a Child's Heart. And it's a book all about the importance of reading books to your kids and the importance of stories in a children's life in developing their imagination and the way they think and their creativity. And so when I read that book, it really helped me understand that it was a good thing for my kids to have an imagination, and that make-believe was not a bad thing, and that pretend was not a bad thing, and reading fairy tales was not a bad thing. So that really freed me up to say, you know what? We can do the Santa Claus thing. We just won't make a big deal of it. We'll make a bigger deal out of the fact that Christmas is about Jesus. But we'll go ahead and play Santa Claus and let that be a fun thing for kids. So I have a couple of lines I want to read to you out of this book because I think it's so great. She wrote, "Maybe you have wondered about the wisdom of fairy stories in your child's life. Some of you have even wondered about elves and fairies and talking animals and even Santa Claus." She wrote, "Children don't take life nearly as seriously as we adults, and they're much more inclined to read for pleasure without theorizing about what's true and what's not true until all of the fun is wrung out." She said, "How quickly we as adults sometimes want to quench the fine spirit of childhood. Imagination," she said, "is the stuff out of which creativity comes, and we need to let our kids develop that." So that was such an encouragement to me. So we did Santa Claus, we hung up stockings, we had fun with it, but we didn't make a big deal out of it. And our kids knew that the most important thing about Christmas was that Jesus was born. We read the Luke 2 story. The manger scene was the center of attention in our home. And so I think it's perfectly fine to have both. You don't have to, but I think it's perfectly fine to have both if you want to. And I don't think you need to worry as a mom or a dad that you're damaging your child by making pretend about Santa Claus. It's not going to hurt them.